In the verses that precede the passage that was just read for us, we learn that Paul and those who were with him were on one of their missionary journeys, spreading the good news about Jesus to others. And while on this journey, Paul and his fellow travelers had plans to go to certain places, but for a variety of reasons, they were not able to do so. Then, picking up with where our passage for today begins, we learn that the group decided to make a change of plans because of a vision that Paul had. So we see here that Paul, as well as his fellow travelers, had plans, but they were open. They were open to new possibilities, new plans. We have to assume that Paul had to be open to new possibilities, to new plans, for a variety of reasons, but especially because of his own story, of his own journey. Paul was once someone who saw the followers of Jesus as evil, as people who must be dealt with harshly, as people who, not to overstate the matter, must be extinguished. But then Paul had a vision, years before the vision in our passage for today, in which Paul was overcome with sorrow about the direction his life was leading him in, while traveling one day to Damascus, causing Paul to then himself become a follower of Jesus. Along with it being an incredible, awesome experience, this important part of Paul's life also had to be humble. This experience shows us that Paul was open to and willing to change. Being willing to change reminds me of an excerpt from a book by a man named Browning Ware. Ware was a former longtime pastor of First Baptist Church in Austin, Texas. He wrote a regular newspaper column in the local newspaper there, many of which were assembled into a book later on entitled Diary of a Modern Pilgrim. One of his columns that I'm about to read really gets at the heart of the matter, both with what Paul experienced and our own experiences today. He says, if growth requires change, as most persons agree, why do we tend to avoid it? I raised this question to a group on a retreat. The reasons for reluctance to change included fear of the unknown, pain in making correction, embarrassment at confessing imperfections, and laziness. When our discomfort increases beyond the promised pain of change, persons begin to cast about for relief. Changing circumstances becomes an appealing possibility. I remember an alcoholic uncle who spent a lifetime searching for a place in which he could drink without discomfort. He even became a chef on an ocean liner, believing that the perfect port was out there somewhere. People changed mates, professions, churches, and other relationships for similar reasons. If we cannot change our circumstances, perhaps we can experience relief by changing the people around us. We reason, he says, that if we can get them to do this or do that, comfort will come to us. Maybe, but probably not. The last place we usually look is the best place to begin change. Ourselves. Reinhold Niebuhr's famous prayer targets our need. Oh God, give us the strength, the serenity to accept what cannot be changed, the courage to change what should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Being willing to change means being open to new, perhaps different possibilities. Whether that possibility is, as verse 10 reads, crossing over to Macedonia, or a number of possibilities that we face on a regular basis. So what does being open, what does that mean for us today? At times, being open literally means being willing to change plans, as Paul did. It means not being so entrenched in our own way of doing things that we cannot take into consideration others and their thoughts and options, opinions. Changing plans can be listening to coworkers when deciding what next year's budget for the company needs to look like. Changing plans is also working on our own expectations of others, causing us to be more open and accepting of how people, like family members, decide to live their lives. Being open also means being willing to see life as a number of options to choose from, rather than seeing options as a list of things from which we must choose the one correct course of action. The difficulty of making decisions can become heightened by fear of making the wrong choice, regardless of the magnitude of the choice at hand. Be it picking a college major or choosing which place to go get a snowball from. Certain popular interpretations of Scripture, popular especially with more fundamentalist churches and organizations, can only add to this. Interpretations and belief systems in which God is viewed as being ready to strike us with negative consequences if we make a decision that falls outside of God's plans for our lives. I remember being somewhat of this mindset years ago when a mentor helped me to see a third way. You see, I was struggling with choosing between two job options. I told him of my troubles, viewing the situation as one in which I had to make the correct decision for fear of the wrong decision bringing about negative consequences that I would likely regret for years to come. He encouraged me, though, to view my situation as two good options to choose from, both of which would have positive aspects, rather than at a crossroads at which the one correct path must be chosen. Now, I can by no means say that I've approached every decision that way since, but that advice has helped me to rethink the way that I approach decisions by trying to be more open. This mindset also helped me as I spent a number of years working in youth ministry, in which I found this phenomenon that I mentioned earlier of God being ready to strike us with negative consequences if we make a decision that falls outside of God's plans for our lives, to be especially strong among young people. I believe it's so strong among young people, especially high school and college students, and college-aged people, because in many ways, it's an easier approach to life. One that's easier for the teenage or young 20s brain to process. Because if we view life in terms of a right or wrong, black or white type of approach, all we need to do is figure out God's plan for our lives. Then, assuming we've done so, any negative consequences that arise from our decisions are not our fault, and they're not on us. They're on God. And they're to be viewed simply as part of God's plan for our lives. This approach attempts to simplify life by taking out or by minimizing the hard questions of life. Like, why did this happen? Or how do I deal with this messy situation? But the reality is that no matter how much we try to bury questions like these deep down, they will eventually surface again and again. Because life is not simply black or white, right or wrong. But it's difficult not to view life this way, isn't it? Regardless of our age. We all become stuck at times. Some of us every once in a while, some of us daily. Stuck in the fear of choosing the wrong thing. This fear and feeling of being stuck so often often surfaces in the form of anxiety, the repeated what-if questions, thoughts that keep coming into our minds even if we don't want them to, perhaps even physical symptoms like an increased heartbeat, finding it difficult to breathe, or the feeling that life is just moving a little too fast for us. How do we deal with the anxiety of being stuck and the fear of choosing the wrong thing? One way is trying, being more intentional and mindful of remaining in the present moment. Because anxiety does a fantastic job of tricking our brains into thinking that just because we have a thought, that thought must be true. Of spiraling with these what-if questions that arise. Now the reality is we cannot simply stop thoughts from entering our minds, no matter how hard we try. But trying to stay in the present, and having compassion for ourselves when we do not, though, that robs anxiety of its power by not creating and not following that well-worn pattern that we're all so accustomed to, of taking a mental trip into the future to see how making the wrong decision can have negative consequences for our lives. Did Paul live with anxiety? I believe he did, simply because he was human. One way Paul dealt with anxiety is found in comparing Paul's journeys with Jesus' journeys, especially because the Gospel of Luke records them, because this is the same Luke who also wrote the book of Acts. So we find that both Paul and Jesus, as we compare these journeys, they both dealt with change and transition by being open to putting justice in front of other needs and matters. Take Luke 6 through 11, for example. It reads, "On another Sabbath, Jesus entered the synagogue and taught. And there was a man there whose right hand was withered. The scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he would cure on the Sabbath, so that they might find an accusation against him. Even though he knew what they were thinking, he said to the man with the withered hand, 'Come and stand here.' He got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, 'I ask you, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to destroy it?' After looking around at all of them, he said to him, 'Stretch out your hand.' He did so, and his hand was restored. But they were filled with fury and discussed with one another what they might do to Jesus. Jesus put justice in front of other needs and matters, as did Paul at the end of our passage for today. Lydia's house, as we read, became the center of the church in Philippi. A woman's house became the center of the church there. That is huge because of the low status women had during the time that all of this was taking place. So because of her faith and because of her actions, Paul put justice in front of other needs and matters, as Lydia's house became the center of the church there. Being open to seeing our surroundings through those same lenses can mean a number of different things for us today. It can mean standing up for someone being treated unfairly in the line at the store. It can mean protesting what we consider to be inhumane policies. It can mean using our vote and our voice to back what we believe to be good, true, and right. Whatever it means for us in our lives is what matters most, as we seek to be open to bringing about justice wherever we are. An anonymous prayer that Browning Ware, the author I referred to earlier, refers to in his book, I believe believe is a fitting prayer to finish with our sermon for today. Would you pray with me? May God bless you with discomfort and easy answers, half-truth, superficial relationships, so that you will live deep within your heart. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer from panic, rejection, starvation, and war, so that you will reach out your hand to comfort them and change their pain into joy. And may God bless you with the foolishness to think that you can make a difference in the world, so that you will do things which others tell you cannot be done.